Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the fourth in our Career Basics webinar series. Today we'll be looking at planning your successful job search. Welcome to anybody who's joining us for the first time, and welcome back to those who've been in one or more of the earlier sessions. A reminder to everyone that the webinar is being recorded, and I will then archive it. Just my voice, your voices aren't recorded. You can write questions, however, throughout the session, and I'll identify you by first name only. So actually, we're going to start today with the polls. So I'm going to launch the first poll and just get a sense of what the situation is of all of you out there. So, sorry, it's not showing me the whole thing. Which of the following best describes, it's not letting me see the whole thing, your current situation, your current job search plan. Give you guys a second to finish voting. Okay, so we have 55% of you are in the thinking about it, planning stage. 27% of you are passively looking, applying to a few things, and 25% of you are actively looking for a new job. Great. So that just gives me a little bit of general information. I'm going to close that and open the second poll. Oh, where's the second one? Oh, silly. Don't do that. Sorry. Okay. Okay. And then let's launch the second one. I am currently employed full-time, employed part-time, unemployed or out of the workforce, or other. Okay, we have 75% of you voted, so we have 33% employed full-time, 8% employed part-time, and 50% unemployed or out of the workforce. Okay, good to know. So that just gives me some general information so I know where you're coming from, and if you have specific questions as you go along, type them into the box that says questions, and I will stop from time to time to answer them. So let's get started on our presentation. We're looking today at planning your successful job search. My name is Christine Valenza Shin. I'm class of '84, and I'm the alumni counselor here at Barnard Career Development. So we're going to look at a couple of different job search steps today. They are exploring options, clarifying goals, preparing your job search toolbox, launching a comprehensive job search, tracking your progress, keeping perspective, and making it manageable. So I'm not going to touch the things that we've already touched on in the series. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. If you weren't here for the earlier sessions, they are archived on the Career Development website under the alumni page. So this is something I said in our very first session, okay? Every job search, voluntary or not, is an opportunity to step back and assess what you want to do next. And a couple things to ask yourself in the self-assessment: what do I like, dislike? What are my strengths and weaknesses? What do I value most in a work situation? So no matter what your particular situation is, you're coming back after a gap, you've been laid off, you voluntarily quit, you want to take a little time to ask yourselves these questions and answer them. There's assessment tools available that I went into in more detail in our opening webinar. We offer the MBTI and Strong Interest Inventory through our office, and there are values and skills inventories as well. And then you want to do some job and career research. You can use job sites, obviously, as both to look for jobs, but also as a research tool, see what's out there, what skills are being looked for. ONET is a U.S. Department of Labor website with lots of information about different jobs and job titles. And careerzone.net is the New York State version of that. Many states have their own version of a career job information website. And then finally, after you've looked at yourself, looked at the world of work, you want to set some goals. The goal, once you've narrowed things down, what you're going for is a 30-second pitch or an opening statement that conveys what you're looking for. If you can boil it down to a couple of sentences, what you're looking for, then you're set to go. But let's take a closer look at that in a moment. So that's one of the first things you need in what we call our job search toolbox. What do you have to have assembled before you set off on your job search? You do need that 30-second networking pitch or introduction. More about that in a moment. An updated resume and LinkedIn profile. We talked about that in our second webinar. And again, for those of you who weren't here, that's archived on our site. You need cover letters. We looked at an application cover letter. All right, that's when you're applying for a specific position that's been posted or that you've heard about. There's also what's called a letter of inquiry. It's sort of like a request for an informational interview, but with an entity, not a single person. So if you have no connections at a particular company or organization, but you are interested in it, you can send a letter of inquiry, which basically says, very interested in your company and what you do. I have these skills and experiences I could bring to your team. Would love to set up a meeting to talk about further about what you do and how I might be able to fit in. So basically, it's an ask to meet in general rather than about a specific job. You need professional references. We'll talk about that in a little bit more detail. You need a support network. That's part of the survival process of the job search. Okay, let's look at that 30-second pitch a little bit more closely. Basically, what you want to say in that 30-second pitch or write, these can be written in answer to an application question. They could be your summary or your headline on LinkedIn. So it can be in either spoken or written form, variations of this. What you're looking at, what you want to convey is who are you, what do you do, what are you looking for? And versions of this can be used as an opener at networking events, or for informal networking. Okay, you could just be in any social setting and someone says, oh, what do you do? And that's a perfect opportunity for your 30-second pitch. Oops, sorry, back here. And it also can be an answer to an initial interview question. The classic opener, we'll look at some of these next week, might be tell us about yourself. That's an invitation to give your 30-second pitch, which in this case would be longer than 30 seconds, might be a minute or two. And so that's a longer version. Let's look at a short version, an example. Hi, I'm Jessica Nunez. I'm currently managing a small nonprofit that focuses on health education for underserved families, and have been working in the field for about 10 years. Though this has been a rewarding experience, I want to incorporate my love of the arts and dance into my next position. I'm looking for opportunities in arts administration, specifically working with dance companies. Now, it sounds like a little speech, and very often we're not invited to give a speech like that, but what you would do in a, say, less formal situation, or even in a formal networking situation, is you would sort of cover that information maybe in a more conversational tone, not just all in one fell swoop. But if you've got this sort of in the back of your mind, or actually in the front of your mind, it can help make sure that you're getting straight to the point when people ask about what's going on for you and what you're doing. Oh, sorry. Okay, I'm just checking on the questions. It looks like, hold on one second. Let me see what happened with the polls. Okay. Now, sorry about that. Are you able to now see the screen? Looks like. Okay. All right, let me backtrack slightly. Sorry about that. That was human error. I can't blame the. Oh, okay. So here's our job search steps, what we're going to look at today. Career exploration. I mentioned self-assessment, followed by assessment tools, followed by job and career research, and then setting goals, the job search toolbox, 2 kinds of cover letters, professional references, support network, and then we started talking about the 30-second pitch. So who are you? What do you do? What are you looking for? And then sort of the short version, long version. So here's where we left off. Here's the short version. Okay. And then longer version, still the same concept. Who are you? What do you do? What are you looking for? And here's the longer version. So you can see part of it's from before. She's still saying who she is and what she currently does. And then she moves to a couple of accomplishments. In my role as director at Healthy Families, I increased funding by 200% during the first 2 years. Most recently, I was awarded the Groundbreaking Curriculum Award by the National Nonprofit Advisory Group. And then she tells a little bit about her strengths, not in great detail, because especially in an interview situation, this might get followed up on. And then we get the same sentence about what she's looking for in her next position, and then she transitions, in this case specifically, to the job she's applying for at the Barry Manor Dance Company. So you can see how the 30-second pitch name is a little bit misleading. It's basically that opening introduction. Could be short, could be long, could be elaborated upon. And again, I'll reiterate, very often you're not giving the pitch in a formal setting, so you're not going to necessarily say all of this at once, but these are the key points you want to try and hit on as you meet someone. So how do you go about preparing this? I pulled this from, there's actually, when I put this together or added this segment to the webinar a couple series ago, I just Googled 30-second pitch and found a bunch of different articles. So I pulled this one, it appealed to me. There's different ways of going about this, and I'll give you some resources in the end. So one way to get this ready is to consider how your education, work experience, and personality characteristics would add value to an organization. This is a buzzword that's been about for a while, and I think it's a really good one, though, to be thinking about as you start your job search. What's your value? What skills do you have? What experience do you have? What qualities, personal qualities, are you bringing to the job that's going to add value to a company or organization? You want to outline key points you want to touch on about yourself, about your experience. And then you want to start turning these into a short list of statements about your accomplishments on the job, as well as other relevant skills and personal attributes. You saw in our longer version that Jessica Nunez, our imaginary alumna, mentioned 2 specific accomplishments, something, she quantified how much she raised, and she also mentioned an award she'd received. So you want to think about that. And again, it does not have to be, not everybody's gotten an award, not everybody's instigated a 200% increase in something, but all of us have maybe introduced something new, improved a system, added things, added experiences to our company or organization. Once you've listed 10 to 15 of these attributes, select the strongest sentences and cut as many unnecessary words as possible in order to fit the 30-second time frame. And it's not just about cutting it down time-wise, but just getting to the heart of the matter so that you're not doing a lot of extraneous talking. And then you want to add a brief opening, your name and your profession, and closing, reiterate what you want to happen next if you're looking for something new or looking to move up or looking for a different kind of organization. And then you just want to look at this written version of your 30-second pitch. Make sure your statements tell a cohesive story. You keep rereading and editing until you feel confident that there's a nice flow, right? Then, of course, you need to actually make your 30-second pitch. You want to practice this alone and then with others. 30-second pitches, as I've noted a couple times, most often occur in conversation. But start by recording your pitch. Smartphones make it easy to record things. You could either, with or without video, and observe what's working and what's not. So this allows us to kind of stay hidden in our homes or and practice without having to check it out on a live person yet. Revise it as you try and say it, make it comfortable flowing off your tongue. And then start trying it out for real. with real people, right? You could practice with a friend, you could practice with me, try it out on your family, or you can simply wait until the next time someone says, "What do you do?" or "What's going on with you?" and then you say it. And keep revising it. I mean, it's sort of a living, breathing thing. You'll happen upon a different way of saying something, or you'll see what people are responding to, and it will adjust accordingly. As I mentioned, there's a lot of 30-second pitch articles online. I believe this one I pulled, the system I pulled was from Forbes.com, but if you just Google it, you can see other approaches to this. Okay, so I wanted to spend a little time on 30-second pitch, and if we have a chance, depending on how we're doing time-wise, I may give you an opportunity to write out a 30-second pitch just off the top of your head. Not to make you nervous or anything. But let's keep going through our toolbox so we make sure we get through all of this. The next thing I want to say a few additional words about is professional references. These are people chosen by you to speak positively in support of your application to jobs. So you want to choose people who you reasonably expect will say good things about you in support of your application to jobs. This is not the same thing as listing your complete employment history and former managers for a background check by HR. Things are sort of in flux these days. There's been a lot of changes to the whole job application. It is possible that you'll be asked for your complete employment history in an online application. Traditionally, that used to not happen until you appeared in person for an in-person interview, but things are in flux. Keep me posted as you encounter these things so that I can keep it up to date. But these are two different things. A reference is someone who speaks positively, and a complete employment history is everybody, regardless of whether they would say good things, bad things, or in between. For your references, what you want to do is contact former managers or colleagues and ask if they're willing to be a reference. 3 is a good number to shoot for. You could have more. You could get by with 2, but often places will ask for 3. When you reach out to them or when they get back to you, you want to confirm their current title, organization, preferred contact information. Generally, you only need to give email and telephone contact information. References are usually checked by phone or email, not by a traditional letter. And a little note here, if this is somebody you used to work with and they've moved to a different organization or moved to a different title, that's fine, as long as they can, as long as they're willing to talk about you during the time you worked with them. And then what you would do is print your references on a single sheet of paper, same heading as your resume, in the order you prefer them to be contacted, and bring to the interview or send as a PDF. As I said, sometimes these are asked for in advance on the online job application. You might have to upload that information, okay? Few words about that. You do need to be prepared to provide references at any point in the process. In the past, references were generally not asked for until the interview stage, but they can be asked for earlier, even as part of the online application. As soon as you've been asked for information, let your references know, even if it's on an online application. You just want to give them that heads up so that they can expect especially a phone call can be unexpected, catch them off guard if they haven't heard from you in a little while. So that's helpful, right? And then once you do get a job, notify and thank all 3, even if they weren't contacted. Again, it's just part of that positive reinforcement of people being willing to help you out. I'm going to pause here for a second. Okay. Let me handle one other issue that's come up in the last year or 2. You may be asked for your current manager's contact information, even if he or she is not aware of your job search. This seems to be popping up from time to time. This used to be sort of a no-no. There used to be this kind of honor system, this realization that, yeah, you may be conducting a job search. You're often conducting a job search without your current manager knowing about it. But companies, we're living in what I call an employer's market. They've got a bit of the upper hand given the recent tumult in the economy, and they're asking for more than they used to. And one of the things that sometimes they're pressing on is, I want to talk to your current manager. You want to negotiate this carefully, and negotiate is a key word here. What you want to do is not provide that. If you want to keep your job search under wraps for now, you're completely entitled to that. Or if you're uncertain what your manager might say about you, either because they don't want to lose you or because you have a rocky relationship with them, you don't want to give this information until you're very close to being selected. So one phrase you could use is, I'm not comfortable having you speak with my current manager until you've made me a provisional offer. So I worked with an alumna last year who basically what she said is this, make me the offer contingent on what my manager says. If I'm your top choice, then absolutely speak to him. If he says anything that gives you concern and you want to withdraw the offer, I would understand that. But I really don't want to bring my job search out into the open until I know for sure that I'm your top choice. If you find yourself in the situation, that's when you shoot me an email, give me a quick call. I can help talk you through it. I've worked with a couple people on the sort of ins and outs of this. I'm going to stop for a second, see if we have any questions. I don't see any. Okay, great. All right. So that was our job search toolkit preparation. Now we're ready to launch the comprehensive job search. Now, I realize some of you may be in the middle of a job search. You didn't necessarily follow the system for your toolkit, etc. Don't worry about that. I'm just sort of laying out one way of doing this. There are many variations on it. But a comprehensive job search, when we say comprehensive, what we mean is a job search that encompasses both the open and hidden markets. What do I mean by this? The open market consists of posted jobs to which anyone can apply. The combined forces of the slow recovery from the recession and the digitalization of the job search process, kind of a perfect storm, have made it more difficult to get a job this way than in the past. Any of you who've applied in the last 5 or 6 years know that it's just difficult to get noticed through this digitalized system. And it can feel very frustrating, but we're going to talk about some ways to improve your chances of hearing back. You do need to be out on the open market. You need to be applying to things that appeal to you, that seem like a good match. But you also need to be thinking about the hidden market. And these are jobs that are never posted or are not yet posted. So for instance, there's lots of jobs that could be opening next week, but nobody knows because the person in them hasn't quit yet. And the key here to the hidden market is networking is how you gain access to these jobs. It's always been important. It's now crucial because the percentages vary. I've seen figures everywhere from 30 to 80% of jobs never get posted. With figures that widely varied, I have a feeling no one really knows, but the reality is that there are jobs that don't get posted, and the way you find out about them is through your contacts. The goal of this, the goal of networking, as we talked about last week, is to be fresh in the mind of your contacts when one of these jobs arises. All right, so it's fluky, as we noted last week, but if you approach networking systematically and are regularly meeting with people, you increase your chances of being right place, right time. So let's take a look first at the open job market and how to increase your chances of getting from that big pile of applicants into the smaller pile who's going to get a closer look and then hopefully an invitation to an interview. Where do you find these jobs? General job search. There's many general job search sites. Indeed.com is the most popular at the moment for whatever reason. Pulls from a lot of sources, has a lot of different features, so you definitely want to check that out. There's also Career Builder, Simply Hired. Monster was the first big online general job search site. It's still out there, still has a lot of good resources, but for whatever reason, it's kind of faded as the go-to place for both job seekers and employers. And then we have what we call niche sites by field. I just gave a couple of examples. There's Art Jobs Online. There's Idealist that covers the nonprofit sector. There's Media Bistro that covers media, advertising, public relations. There's science jobs, health jobs, law jobs. You name it, there's niche sites within it. We have what we call a virtual library on our website that groups some of these niche sites by categories and other professional associations by field. I used to have a link to this here. I'll send you the link when I send you the follow-up email from this. Just be forewarned, we're in the process of updating it. Some of the links haven't been checked out in a while. So, but it's not a bad starting point for some of these niche sites. And it's also a great thing to ask people as you're doing your networking and informational networking. You know, what's the source? What's a good resource for looking for jobs in the field you're interested in? You also can look at sites by company. I mean, you don't want to be checking probably 100 companies or organizations a day, but if you've got some target companies, some dream organizations you'd like to work with, it's also great to take a look directly at their HR pages. And you also can follow them on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And in general, a lot of more innovative, recent, sometimes startup type companies are actually putting job postings out over Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn before they're even, or even instead of, on the formal job site. So it's a good way to get a jump on what's out there if there's a particular company or organization you have your eye on. Professional associations and conferences very often have job listings. Often you have to pay to be part of a professional association, but part of what you're paying for is access to their job listings, and that can be very valuable. Job fairs are another source. They're considered part of the open job market. You go to a job fair, it could be more about networking, or there could be actual jobs to apply for on site. Trade journals, similar to professional associations, there's still some, in print, but they're also online. And the good old-fashioned listserv, I'm not sure if you're familiar with these. These are sort of email groups by invitation only, and they still exist, and in some fields, particularly some of the creative and entertainment field industries, they're pretty crucial to the job search. I met with a young alumna last year who was here in New York, wanted to be a production assistant on film or television, and the way it works is you can't get on the listserv until you've had a job, even a little job. So you have to kind of scramble to get that first job, but then once you've gotten it, then you get invited to be on the listserv, and then you get emailed further opportunities. So a little bit of a catch-22 there. How do you find out about the jobs if you're not on the listserv? But other professions use this as well, and that's a great question to ask people as you're doing your networking and informational networking. Is there a listserv? Can I be invited? Okay. Can I have a copy of the presentation? Someone has to leave early. Yes, I will send you the link to it. Moving to phone, will not be able to type. Okay, just a couple of updates there. How do you strengthen your application on the open market? First thing is to submit your application as soon as possible after a job is posted or you find out about it. Now, this does not mean you do a bad job of applying. What this means is as soon as possible means as soon as you can put together a strong application in the way we talked about 2 weeks ago, a resume and a cover letter targeted to the job description. You want to take the time to do that, but you want to get your application in sooner rather than later. On the other hand, if you happen to come across something that's been up for 2-3 weeks, sometimes even longer, you could make a quick call or email to HR, make sure that the job is still accepting applications. It's still fine to apply for something even on the late side. One of the key things is you never know what's going on the other end. Sometimes they take as long as a month to gather up resumes. Sometimes they are not particularly thrilled with the first round of people they get, and so they sort of relook at that next batch. So if you're interested in something, by all means apply. But if you can get close to when it's published and posted, that's great. Once you've officially applied, you always want to follow exactly how they tell you to apply. Then it's a good opportunity to search for connections within the company via LinkedIn. So let's say you applied for something at NYU, send in your application and then go to LinkedIn, type in NYU, see who you know who's at NYU, or someone who knows somebody at NYU. What you want to do with that is, if you've got, you might directly know somebody, in which case reach out to them. But if it's a second degree person on LinkedIn or one person away in the real world, you want to ask the common contact for an email introduction. And basically, the phrase you would use is, I've applied for a job at your company. I'd love to meet and get your perspective on working there. That's code for, I'd like to talk to you. And if you like me, maybe you'll put in a good word for me. On the other hand, it's also exactly what it says, which is it's an opportunity for you to sit down with someone who already works there and get some perspective. You may find that may be very helpful in terms of preparing for your interview. It may get you even more excited about working there. It may discourage you a little bit about working there, but either way, the more information you can get, the better. Once, when you've met with somebody, they may offer to refer you to HR or the manager who's hiring. You want to say yes to that. That's exactly what you're hoping for. The refer is a key word here, and someone you've just met may not be willing to use the word recommend. They don't know you that well, although they've had a good conversation with you, or they probably wouldn't have made the offer. But referring basically means they will pass either your resume cover letter along, even if you've already submitted it officially. It's sort of a way to get it back in front of the person's eyes, or they'll simply, pick up the phone or shoot a quick email to say, hey, I had a meeting with someone who applied for that job. She's pretty interesting. Why don't you take a closer look? If they don't make that offer, but you feel like the interview went well, go ahead and ask for the referral yourself. Okay. And, worst case scenario, they say, no, I'm not comfortable doing that. As I may have mentioned earlier, some companies really encourage this, even give bonuses to employees that bring in successful candidates. Other places, it's expressly against the rule. Very often in government positions, there's these anti-nepotism laws, so they're not even allowed to make referrals. So it really depends on the situation, but never hurts to ask. Following up, once you've applied somewhere, unless you are told not to in the description, do follow up. Now, a lot of job applications say that. Don't call us, we'll call you. Please don't email us. But if they don't say that, take that as an opportunity to follow up. It can have a positive impact. Basically, what I advise is 7 to 10 days, either after you submitted your application or after the posted deadline, you sent an email. Short and to the point, I applied for this position. I'm checking in to see where you are in the hiring process. I remain very interested in the position. So it doesn't take you long. It's one of these things. It can't hurt, could help. Could earn you a little gold star next to your name. It could make them search through their pile of resumes or their file, pull yours up, give it a closer look because you took the extra effort to follow up. That's what you're looking for. It's not a miracle thing, but it's just, again, one of those small things you can do that increase your chance. And then once you've sent that email, if you haven't heard anything back, which is highly likely, they don't tend to answer those, you could try via phone or a second email if you would like. The thing about the phone is if you actually get a live person, you sometimes can get some information. If you get a friendly administrative person or even the person doing the hiring, they may say, hey, yeah, we actually haven't even started the process yet. We'll let you know. Or they might let you know that there was an inside candidate and it's all been wrapped up. But either way, so that's helpful information. Again, don't spend a lot of time and stress over this, but just make it part of your checklist. Can't hurt, could help. So that's the open job market and a couple pieces of advice to sort of strengthen your application there. And of course, I just want to reiterate, a lot of it is in that resume cover letter that we talked about a couple sessions ago, making sure that you use the job description as the guide so that you increase your chances of your resume and cover letter matching what they're looking for. The hidden job market. Okay. This is accessed through networking. So just to remind you, or those of you who weren't here last week, who does that include? Who are all the people you should think about? It could be your professional network of colleagues and former colleagues and managers, of course, including managers. Your personal network of friends and family. Professional associations and LinkedIn groups that you belong to. Fellow alumni, all right? And this could be high school, it could be Barnard, could be graduate school. The Barnard Alumni Network, we talked about both the online version and just in person. You all know people from Barnard. And that's a good resource. And then your LinkedIn network, which is your contacts plus your contact contacts. So first degree is your contacts, second degree is their contacts. Okay, so think about all of those groups and think about how can you get the word out to them. I'm going to describe a 3-email campaign. This is just one way of approaching this. Robert Earl, our director here at Career Development, developed this method, and you can take elements of it, you could follow it to the letter, but it's just one way of setting out to do this networking and hopefully net some positive results, some actual job leads. Your first email, you're making contact, you're creating an alliance through a shared experience or similarity, and you're asking for advice. So for instance, you could reach out to a Barnard alumna. I see on LinkedIn that you are, that we're both friends with, or we're both connected to Jane. Tell them what you're looking for, ask for their advice, something concrete. Email number 2 only goes to those who get back to you. So if you send out 10 email number 1s, you might hear back from 2, 3, 4 of those 10 people. You want to thank them for your time. Now you're sending them your resume and you ask for insider advice on the resume. Make it clear that you're not asking for someone to critique or edit your resume. You've already done that. But what you're basically saying is, could you look at this through your eyes as a nonprofit professional, as someone in the healthcare industry, as a lawyer, whatever you're applying for? And then finally, in email number 3, you would ask for a referral to a person responsible for hiring. This is all based on the premise that most people you reach out to don't have a job lead. They're not in charge of the hiring. They are not aware of openings within their company. But once you've established this relationship by email and gotten some advice from them, gotten some feedback, then now's the appropriate time to ask for a referral to a person responsible for hiring. Again, it doesn't have to be about a specific job, but this is the time when you would say, do you have a particular contact in HR, or is there a manager that you can refer me to that you think might have an opening, right? So that's basically just a step-by-step way of reaching out, developing a relationship with someone that you may not know yet, leading towards the goal of trying to find a job lead. There's lots of variations on this. We talked last week about simply reaching out and asking for an informational interview. The key is you don't reach out to someone and say, there's 2 things you don't reach out and say. Hi, we both went to Barnard. Do you have a job for me? And you don't say, hi, we both went to Barnard. I've attached my resume. I really appreciate it if you let me know if anything comes up. You don't do the first because you're just jumping over too much steps. It's presumptuous to ask someone that you don't have a strong relationship, or even someone who you used to know, to jump right to the job. You want to take some time, build up who you are, what you're looking for. You don't want to do the latter because it's too vague. Anybody can say, oh, sure, I'll keep you in mind, but it's really hard for people to actually do that. So you want to hone in on the specific you're looking to get a response is the goal here. Okay, let me just check time. Great. So when you have your actual networking meetings, the ideal is you would come away with a specific job lead or a referral to someone who's actually hiring or who might be hiring. That would be great, gold standard. But you want to at least walk away with another person to talk to, or another company or organization to research or contact. So any networking meeting, as long as you're getting a name or a referral, that would be great. And then any inside knowledge the person you're meeting with has is also valuable. So even if they say, yeah, there's not a lot of hiring going on at the moment, but that's when you ask some questions about, what are the trends? Where are the jobs coming? What's the current climate? What's happening with salaries? It's a good moment to first introduce gathering a little information about salaries in a general way. Okay? So these are some of the things you can be trying to get out of your networking meetings. All right, so then let's talk a little bit about keeping this all in perspective, surviving the process. All right, you want to be kind to yourself. Looking for work is challenging. It's a lot of work, and much of it is quite routine and tedious, right? Writing a cover letter, tweaking your resume, sending it out, filling out online applications, sending out 5 emails to your network, trying to set up information. These are all kind of boring routine tasks. Um, not the most stimulating work. And you're going to have potentially periods of minimal results, and that can get really frustrating. And again, especially in today's market, you don't tend to hear a lot back. It really, a lot of people say they feel like they're just sending things out into the void. And that can be true both on the networking end and on the open market end. If you are currently unemployed, it is really easy to feel alone and isolated. And even if you are currently employed, you're often conducting your job search without anyone knowing about it, because you don't want necessarily the word to get back that you're looking for something new. So it's easy to feel that you're alone, you're isolated. So that's why you need to be kind to yourself. It's a hard process. And so keeping that in mind, let's see what we can do to make it manageable. You want to make sure you keep your job search part-time. Even if you're fully unemployed, you don't want to be doing it 24/7 or 9 to 5, 5 days a week. Trying to do this nonstop is going to lead to burnout. I encounter this a fair amount with our young alumni who are, who often have parents actively involved in the process who are pushing them to constantly be doing more and more and more. And you definitely want to be working at this. You want to be working it steadily, but you cannot make it your full-time job for a variety of reasons, not just the fear of burnout, but also in order to fill up that time, you can waste a lot of time applying to things that aren't really that good a fit. And you don't want to do that. You want to be targeted in what you apply to. You want to pick those things that you really are a good candidate for and can make a good case. You want to balance your job seeking work with other activities, and there's a bunch of things you can do. Volunteer work is excellent. It gets you out of the house. It gets you out of your head, thinking about others, gives some structure. You also meet people. It's a great informal networking possibility. And especially you can do targeted volunteer work where you're volunteering specifically in the field that you're interested in, or you could be volunteering to pick up some skills, that are helpful to your resume. So maybe you volunteer to put together the newsletter for a charitable organization, either because you already know how to do that kind of thing, or maybe you want to learn and continue honing your skills in using the different programs to create a newsletter or a web page or whatever. Okay. This is a job hunt. It's a good time to, if you haven't been keeping up with your interests and hobbies, bring them back in. Again, take a class, take a free class, get out there, connect with other people who have similar interests and hobbies. Again, you're informally networking. Again, you're sort of reminding yourself that you are more than just your work, more than just your job search. Activities and exercise. I have a friend from Barnard who worked in television for many years, and it meant, and sometimes on short-term assignments. Sometimes it was a one-year contract. Sometimes it was things like she worked on the Olympics, and then the Olympics are over, and she was out of a job. The first thing she would do when the job was over was she'd go sign up for the gym, and just make sure that she was getting out to the gym every day while she then proceeded into her next job search. You don't have to join a gym. You can walk, all those things you put off when you're employed full-time. This is a good opportunity to bring them back in. Friends and family, you want to make sure, especially if you're a social person, but even if you're not, you want to make sure you're having some human contact during this process. If money is tight, which it may well be if you're unemployed, you want to think about free or inexpensive activities. Right? Lectures, lots of university and other organizations have free lectures, free events. First movie showings of the day, extra bonus there, it gets you out, but they also often can be as much as half price of the usual movie ticket. Potluck dinners, right? Instead of meeting friends at a restaurant, host a potluck dinner, suggest a potluck dinner. Okay, the idea here is to balance out the job-seeking work with other activities. Remind yourself that you have friends, you have connections, you have a life outside of work and outside of your job hunt. All right, in terms of keeping it manageable, you want to develop a tracking system. You want to make sure as you work through your job search that you're keeping track of actions you've taken, when you took them, and keeping a record of all the contact information for organizations and people. Any names you get, emails, phone numbers, you want to keep it all in one place. If you love lists and calendars and spreadsheets and color-coded filing systems, you use them to your heart's content. Don't spend so much time on them that you're not actually applying for things, but this is a good time for those of you, the organizational nerds out there, I like to call you. This is a great time to just sort of let that part of you flourish. But if you don't love lists and calendars and spreadsheets, you're kind of a more disorganized person, you still need a system to keep track. There is nothing worse than getting a quick phone call from a company you applied to 3 weeks ago and not remembering anything about it, or getting an email and having to scramble, back through, old files and things like that. So there are various ways of keeping a system. You can have a notebook or journal that you're jotting things down, tucking cards into. You can have a file box, a folder, or a drawer that everything goes into. You just want everything in one place, even if it's not perfectly filed and color-coded like our organized sisters. At least it's in one place, okay? You want to work with yourself, not against. Try and observe and take advantage of your work patterns, not judge and reform them. All right, so let's say you're working full-time and you're looking for a job. This is not the time to decide that you are a morning person and you're going to get up at 6 a.m. every day and look for jobs from 6 to 7 a.m. Now, that could be a great plan if you are, in fact, a morning person and you just need to kind of remind yourself, okay, I got to, find a little extra time in the day. But if you're a night person, don't try and all of a sudden become a morning person, for example. Assess your best time of day for focus and productivity and take advantage of it, and think about, do you work better in small frequent bursts or during long stretches of time? A lot of this stuff, especially the tedious stuff, can be done 10, 20 minutes a day, as long as you're doing it every day. To my mind, the routine is more important than the actual you don't have to stick to the same hour every day. You don't have to put in a certain number of minutes or hours. It's the routine. It's looking at the stuff every day, every other day, every Saturday, whatever works for you, whatever works within your time frame, but the routine is the important part. Make sure you come back. And do think, again, especially if you're unemployed or employed only part-time, consider scheduling appointments and meetings to get you out and about. Some people, specifically do things early in the morning, forces them to get up and sort of stick to that 9 to 5. Or 8 to 6, or whatever your work pattern was. I work part-time. I'm here at Barnard 3 days a week. On the other days, I'm not a big fan of getting up and out first thing in the morning. I mean, I obviously do it 3 days a week. But what I tend to do is try and schedule something for late morning or noontime. And what I find is that then gives me a chunk of time in the morning. I know I have to say walk out the door at 11, and so it gives me the solid chunk of time to get something done. And I have a deadline to work against, and that works really, well for me. And then I come home, and then I've got, another deadline, which is generally my son coming home from school or everybody needing dinner. That works as my sort of second barrier of the day. So you just want to look at your patterns and look at how you can structure things. Give yourself the structure that you don't necessarily have if you're no longer working full time. Okay. So what does this look like? Sample job search plan. Again, this is just one way of approaching it, but if you're looking for a plan, week number 1. So on Monday, make 5 networking contacts. Notice I start with networking first. It's so important, and people like to neglect it. Well, some people like to neglect it, not everyone. Tuesday, find and apply to 5 jobs. So the first 2 days, we've already looked at the hidden market. Now we're looking at the open market. Wednesday, research companies, send letters of inquiry. Okay, so you take a look at a company that might be a good fit. You see if you've got contacts there, in which case you would reach out to them. But if you don't, you could send a letter of inquiry to the organization. Thursday, you might want to look for job fairs or networking events. Friday, you want to look for job opportunities through your professional associations and trade journals. Saturday is LinkedIn Day. Any day can be LinkedIn Day, but I really do advise that if you're on LinkedIn, which hopefully you are, that it become a part of your routine. Could be every day, could be once a week, but LinkedIn needs to be part of your regular routine. And when you get there, you just want to have a little list, little housekeeping list. You want to add some contacts, maybe some people you've met during the week, or you pull out your old yearbook, etc. Just keep adding contacts. You want to read and post in your groups. You want to browse profiles. right? Keep looking at what people do, where they work. Okay. And then that might lead you to find out about an organization, and then you circle back and look at the organization, so there's all sorts of things you can do on LinkedIn. The key is the routine. So then week number 2, you're going to make 5 networking contacts. Oops, sorry about that. You guys get to look at my calendar. Very exciting. So you want to make 5 networking contacts, and you have to follow up on last week's contact. So if anybody got back to you, or if somebody didn't get back to you, that's really a really good potential contact, you might think about, okay, how else could I reach them? Could I go through somebody else? Tuesday, you want to find and apply to 5 jobs and follow up on last week's applications. This could be a good time to send that follow-up. Wednesday, research companies, follow up on your letters of inquiry. You're starting to get the idea here, right? Job fairs and miscellaneous, etc. Follow up. And Saturday is LinkedIn day again. And you're going to go back to that checklist. All right. Again, if you don't have to do this every day, you could do this all in one day. You can take Sunday off. You can take Saturday off. You can take any day of the week off. The idea is just to give you a sense of, again, if you go at this systematically, it makes it more manageable. It makes it feel a little bit less overwhelming if you're feeling overwhelmed. Okay. All right. So a few notes about staying positive. You want to talk with friends and family that are honest, but also constructive and upbeat. All right. Try and avoid the people pleasers who are just going to tell you what you want to hear, but also try and avoid the really negative. I mean, you can't completely, and your friends are your friends, but just be a little selective in who you decide to share the ins and outs of your job search with. Okay. I'm here to say that the economy and job market are improving, if slowly. I mean, I think it has been a slow and steady improvement. Just anecdotally, I've been doing this job steadily for 3 years and was here sort of for a couple of shorter stints the couple of years before that. And just from my perspective, when I first started, I was seeing a lot of people who'd been laid off from various industries, especially publishing journalists. I'm seeing a lot less of that. I still occasionally see someone who's been laid off. There's still, things happen, budgets get cut, things get rejiggered, but I'm just seeing a lot fewer people who've been laid off and a lot more people who are just looking for something new. So anecdotally, things are getting better out there. Wages aren't getting better, but job opportunities are. You want to be patient. The hiring process, there's been a lot of articles about this, that the hiring process from start to finish is taking longer. Companies are asking for more details, for more rounds of interviews. So it takes them longer to go through resumes in the first place. So a lot of people apply for something, they don't hear anything for 2 weeks, and they shoot me an email and say, yeah, so I've given up on that place. And I'm like, well, okay, you don't have to do anything, but they may get back to you. You might be surprised. And, I've got lots of stories, especially when you apply for government things. I had an alumna taking the workshop series of this, the workshop version of this series about a year ago. And she, in the middle of the workshop series, heard back from a New York State agency that she'd applied to 6 months ago, ended up getting the job. So, so you never know. You never know what's going on the other end. But in general, it's taking longer. There are exceptions to that. Some places are moving really quickly along, but a lot of times they're taking their time. So in the meantime, you don't want to get too obsessed or focused on any one possible job, even if it's your dream job. You want to keep applying to others. That's the best antidote to the frustration of not hearing, is just keep applying to others and keep networking, right? When it feels like the open job market is nothing, there's nothing good, you're not hearing anything back, then step up your networking. When it feels like networking is leading nowhere, circle back, step up the open job market. Don't abandon either. Keep working both sides of it. But if you are getting frustrated with one or the other, you could take a little break or scale back a little and focus more on the other one. Be confident of your value and skills. You have a lot to offer, and you will be offered the right job or a right job. I don't really believe that there's necessarily a single right job out there. And I've been saying this a lot to people over the last couple of months, is it's a little bit of a change of mindset. Think, who gets to have my skills and experience next, instead of who can I get to hire me. They're both true, but I hear too many people saying that, who can I get to hire me, in that sort of sense of, it's completely natural to feel a sense of frustration, desperation, concern, anxiety that nobody's going to hire you. And that gets exacerbated by not hearing back from a lot of places, or not hearing back from long stretches of time. But if you can try and change that mindset a little and say, and just approach it that way, I've got this set of skills, this set of experiences, where do I want to bring it? You still have to be strategic. You still have to convince them to bring you in for the interview. You still have to, do well in that interview. But the bottom line is the same. You do have a set of skills, a set of experiences that are valuable, that companies and organizations are looking for, and you get to choose where you apply and who potentially gets them. On the other hand, you need to be realistic. If you're consistently not getting interviews after applying for things or networking through things, or if you're interviewing a lot but not getting offers, you need to reassess. And that's a good time to reach out to myself or another counselor to brainstorm new strategies, approaches, and resources to try. I often hear, I've done a couple of these last couple of weeks, I often hear from the most recent graduating class, in this case, the class of 15, a couple months into their job search. Sometimes it's after they've done an internship or some special thing over the summer. They come back, they're all excited to apply for jobs, and then I hear from them in November, December, or whenever. And I call it the job search tune-up. Basically, they've been applying for things, they're not hearing back, or they're not getting, and we just sit down and we go through the checklist, but then I also throw out a couple of, more innovative ways to get people's attention. And very often, not always, but very often what happens is it's kind of a chance to re-energize, try some new things, and sometimes it results in a new job. Sometimes they don't tell me, and then I send them an email about a job opening, and I hear back, "Thanks for thinking of me, but I actually got a job." So that's always good to hear. It's what every career counselor wants to hear. So next steps. Next in the webinar series, I've mentioned a couple things about interviewing, and that's what we'll look at closely next week. Best practices to get the job. That's next Wednesday, and then we'll wrap up the series with Know and Grow Your Worth, negotiating, the job offer, and managing your ongoing professional development. That's on March 2nd. In the meantime, you all are making me very popular. Counseling appointments are available, but they'll still be available at the end of the series too. I really urge you to call, don't email me. It's lovely to hear from you by email, but basically all I'm going to tell you in the email is to call the office, okay? So call, it's the best way to make the appointment. The people at the front desk have my whole schedule, you have your schedule, and hopefully you find something good. I'm here Mondays 10 to 6, Wednesdays 9:15 to 5. It's actually more like 5:30, and Thursdays 10 to 6. I might have mentioned last week, my schedule's been super full lately, so you might have to wait a couple weeks for an appointment, but get on my books, and then if something urgent comes up, a salary negotiation, a job interview, shoot me an email and I'll try and squeeze you in. But always start with a phone call, always start with getting an appointment on my calendar so that we can then work from there. Okay? Questions? We have, how do we do on time? We have exactly 2 minutes, but you know me, I'll stay a little bit longer. So those of you who can stay and have questions, feel free to stay. Thanks everybody for coming. You'll get follow-up emails from me, and I'll see some of you again next week. Okay, just scrolling back. Okay. If you've got a question, feel free to type it into the box. All right, it looks like this was such a good presentation. I left no questions unanswered. If you think of any afterwards, feel free to shoot me an email or call for an appointment. Otherwise, we'll meet again, some of us, next week. Oh, someone's attending a networking function at Columbia this evening, so I will try and use the information tonight. Excellent. Good luck with that. And good that you're getting out there networking. Great. Okay, I'm going to wrap things up. I have a networking lunch with a colleague here at Barnard myself for her, not me. I'm not looking to go anywhere. And I'll talk to some of you next week. Thanks again.